Welcome to January, where the AdSense drops by 50% and my video topics don't matter. Meaning, I'm free to ramble about obscure Byzantine politics because I think it's rad. Here's Empress Zoe, the architect of a life's worth of court drama, marriage alliances, scheming eunuchs, a lot of murder, but surprisingly little execution. And she did most of it in her golden years. This episode is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. VPNs, or virtual private networks for anyone who just discovered YouTube, are quickly becoming a staple of using the internet. They're a great way to keep your information safe, but more than that, they make the internet a freer place, where tech companies can't throttle your connection, where you don't need the right address to watch your favorite shows, and where you don't get upcharged online for living in the wrong country. Surfshark is already one of the best value VPNs out there, but they're giving away 3 months of service for free and 83% off to anyone who uses the link on screen or in the description with the code Rackam. Thanks to Surfshark for supporting the show. Our story starts in the year 1028 when Zoe's father arranges a marriage for his little girl, the 50-year-old Princess Zoe. For the record, this was not normal for the time, but until recently, Zoe's uncle Basil II was busy being the biggest deal this side of Justinian, and he didn't want to have any nephews-in-law getting big ideas about claiming the throne since he didn't have any kids of his own. For Basil, that was perfect. He had enough enemies to stomp on, and he continued stomping into his 60s. The problem is, that made him the longest reigning Roman emperor of all time. Meanwhile, Zoe and Theodora, the last hope for continuing the dynasty, were going through menopause in the ladies' room. Literally, a room in the palace where they kept all the ladies. This was an actual thing. But problem, on top of treating the royal princesses like that outfit in the back of your closet you keep telling yourself you're gonna pull out one day for a special occasion, there's not gonna be a royal family much longer if they don't get married fast. So when Basil finally dies, Zoe's dad slaps together a list of dudes. Then the nobles cross off a few options because they want a weak figurehead who they can control, which is exactly what the Byzantine Empire needed in the 11th century. Then Zoe's sister Theodora passes on a married man who's also her cousin, but Zoe has no such complaints, I guess. So wham bam thank you ma'am, Zoe walks down the aisle, and not a moment too soon because her dad died the very next day. Which means they got to spend their honeymoon transitioning the empire to a new administration. How exciting! The dude Zoe was married to seems like a decent guy. He was a big fan of Marcus Aurelius and Trajan, and he put a ton of cash into churches and monasteries. He did mess up the tax system and the military, though, which are, just the most basic things a government needs to survive. When it came to Zoe, though, that cash was suddenly off limits. And then, of course, they couldn't conceive, so there was that whole ordeal, which then put a strain on their marriage, which led to them sleeping apart, which makes conception a whole lot harder. There was still a small chance one of them could have kids, it just wasn't gonna be with each other. So, if anything happened to them, say some freak accident, it would be Zoe's sister Theodora in charge, and Theodora does not seem to have had a problem with that. As a matter of fact, she was quite looking forward to it. Spend 50 years rooming with your sibling and see how you like it. She ends up conspiring with a former Bulgarian prince, from when Bulgaria was still a thing that existed, until Zoe catches her and lets her go. Wow, the empire came a long way from the days of Nero. She blinded the Bulgarian and sent him to a monastery, but still. So of course Theodora tries again with a new guy, and they both get shipped off to monasteries. But the fun's not over. One day, Zoe's husband turns to his servant and says, "Hey, one of the eunuchs tells me he was fixing the locks and saw my wife sitting in your lap. You know what's going on with that?" Yeah, there was, the chair was giving her trouble. I'm not sleeping with your wife. Oh, that's a relief, because he told me after he got the tumbler to work she was making out with you on the throne while you were wearing my crown and scepter, and then she saw the guy open the door and told him she was gonna make you the emperor. No, I don't think so. We gotta kill him. Yep. Then a couple guys drowned him in the bathtub. Weird. But just in time, because Zoe and Michael had scheduled to be married that same afternoon. What timing! Michael then realizes Zoe just might do the same thing to him one day, so he shoves her back into the ladies' room and gives all the power to his brother John, evidently not realizing that it was exactly this kind of behavior that put her first husband in Davy Jones' locker. Lucky for Mike, Zoe actually liked him on account of actually choosing that marriage for herself, so she pays off a doctor to poison John instead. And guess what? The doctor gets caught and sent into exile. Seriously, did I miss some euphemisms here, or did the Byzantines just get rid of the death penalty? Anyway, Michael doesn't last long until he dies of natural causes, so all the power goes back to Zoe, except not actually, because thanks to some backroom deals or something, she ends up adopting Michael's nephew, who then becomes her new co-emperor, and like first order of business, he just ships her off to a monastery, no questions asked. You know what? Fair play. But he probably would have been better off waiting, because now this means some commoner's nephew who nobody's ever heard of is in charge of the entire empire, and for some reason the other commoners are not happy about that. So Zoe comes back with an army and a new haircut, and she blows up the Hagia Sophia. Kidding. Michael brings her back as a token gesture, but the people see through it and rise up so that Zoe can take back the throne with a wave of popular support. Finally, girl power! And then they make her co-empress with her sister. Yay, girl power. Zoe wants to let her nephew go, but Theodora insists on blinding him and sending him to a monastery. I swear to God, if I ever have kids, I'm going to tell them all their pets went to join the monastery. By and large, it's tough to tell exactly how much Zoe was really calling the shots as Empress. Like, clearly she held a lot of sway in court and in public opinion, but at the same time, official policy seemed to change a lot from husband to husband. She might not have even been that keen on ruling everything herself, but when your sister comes back from exile as co-empress, you've got to cling to power just to stay safe, never mind the actual job. Zoe and Theodora were equals on paper and did everything together in public, but you'd better believe everyone in the palace was on one team or another. With that in mind, Zoe decides it'd be handy to boost her influence with another husband. But she's gotta choose wisely, because in the Orthodox Church, you get 3 strikes and you're out. No more marriage for you. So she weighs her options carefully. First, there's bachelor number 1, Constantine, the weak figurehead her dad tried to set her up with 15 years ago. They sit down to reconnect, but it turns out he's a lot more pushy than he used to be. Then there's bachelor number 2, Constantine, an old flame she used to cheat on her first husband with, who's actually not a bachelor. He had a wife, but, you know, not a problem. Just send her to a monastery. But just a few days before the wedding, he was sent to a monastery. No, wait, he was actually poisoned, probably by his ex-wife-to-be. So, by process of elimination, Zoe settles on bachelor number 3, Constantine, another ex-lover who's also looking for his 3rd shot at marriage. Not his 3rd shot at love, though, because with Constantine comes his mistress and her whole family. And he's making his relationship with her public, and he just gave her the title of Augustus. Oh, this might have been a mistake. Everyone in Constantinople sure seemed to think so. They figured Zoe was about to get murdered any day now, and they all rose up again to take down Constantine until she and Theodora came out saying, whoa, hey, he hasn't actually done any conspiring yet. We're cool. All right, everybody go home. Wish I could tell you why everyone loved her so much. Like, yeah, she's got royal blood, but so did Emperor Justinian, and he nearly got killed because of a chariot race. But alas, all the writings about her talk more about the court drama and how she didn't like dresses but loved perfume. Makes for a fun story, though. Anyway, she died 6 years later.